What's going on, everybody? It's Warren. Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and MCU. And I should add a little bit out of the MCU since we talk about Spider-Man and the Sony Spider-Man universe a lot as well. And we do have a lot of news today concerning the MCU and concerning the Sonyverse because Morbius has been delayed. I'm sure some of you have heard this by now, but there are some really cool rumors going around right now about possibly why it's been delayed. And I'll give you a hint about these rumors that we're going to talk about. It involves Andrew Garfield. So like I said, pretty crazy but pretty cool rumors we'll be talking about. And I have a theory that I'll state in this video that I think a lot of Spider-Man fans will really enjoy. So as usual, lots to talk about, and if you love Marvel and the MCU, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the latest news. Now, we'll talk about Morbius being delayed first and the crazy theories going around it because I kind of hyped it up in the beginning. Now, unfortunately, we were only a couple of weeks away from actually getting the release of Morbius, but now it's been delayed and moved back to April 1st. And no, unfortunately, it is not an April Fool's joke, although very weird day to pick a release. Now, of course, the reason that Sony states that they are moving the movie back is because of the Omicron variant of COVID-19. Now, after speaking with a few people over at Sony during the Spider-Man No Way Home premiere and prior to that, I have definitely discovered that Sony is taking a lot of precautions when it comes to COVID-19, which they should. But they just released Spider-Man No Way Home, so one would think that it should be relatively okay for Morbius. Now, COVID cases are going up, which is probably their biggest concern. They don't want to contribute to that with a worldwide movie premiere, but in the midst of all of this rescheduling lies a very interesting opportunity. And this opportunity involves Spider-Man, particularly Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Now, before we dive into this, I want to reiterate, this is just a rumor. This is not confirmed by any means, but it does make sense and could be a massive opportunity for Sony. The rumor right now is that Sony is pushing back Morbius so they can actually add Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man into the film. And if you consider a few things, it actually makes sense for them to do this. And even if it didn't, I know everybody would want this anyways. Now, I should say that we are about to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home spoilers. So if you haven't seen it and somehow managed to avoid all the spoilers on the internet, this is your warning. But diving back into this, after Spider-Man No Way Home released in theaters and everybody got a chance to see it, or mostly everybody, reports from credible insiders like My Time to Shine Hello and Daniel RPK have stated that Sony and Marvel Studios has plans for Andrew Garfield and possibly Tobey Maguire. Most of the talk has been about Andrew Garfield, which is why this rumor actually makes some sense. If Sony wants Andrew Garfield to be Sony's Spider-Man in the Spider-Man universe that Sony has, and they're planning on him appearing in their universe in future films, it would make sense that they would take full advantage of this opportunity of the delay to somehow put Andrew Garfield in the movie, even if it's for just a quick little cameo. Because if we think about it, this might have been Sony's plan the entire time to put Andrew Garfield in this Venom, Spider-Man, Morbius, Black Cat, Kraven the Hunter, big Spider-Man universe that they have going on. Now, let me kind of state the fact that, yes, we know Tom Holland's Spider-Man is not done, but he's in the MCU. And I think with all of these other Spider-Man movies that Sony has planned and is releasing at this point in time and has future Spider-Man projects they're working on, I think it's very clear that there's going to be a pretty big separation of the universes. After all, that's why Venom got sent back at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home. So Venom wasn't actually in the MCU, we could just get the symbiote in the MCU and we can have that clear division between universes. So just because Andrew Garfield might be the Spider-Man of the Sony universe doesn't mean Tom Holland is going anywhere. And now, since basically anything is possible with the multiverse, we could see the Spider-Man jumping in and out of universes. But let's look back to the first Morbius trailer and the main Morbius trailer. The first one, we saw that picture of Spider-Man on the wall with the word murderer over it. Now, it doesn't look like Morbius is going to be connecting to Spider-Man No Way Home in any way. We saw no mention of Morbius in No Way Home. So in Morbius's universe, there exists a Spider-Man, and apparently he is not liked by the public. And apparently people think he's a murderer. Now, this could just be clever trailer editing that Marvel is known to do. Even though this is primarily a Sony-helmed film, it's still a possibility that that might be clever editing. However, I actually do think that there is a Spider-Man in the Morbius universe, because if you go to the second and main trailer for Morbius, we can see the Oscorp building, and the logo is exactly the same as the logo from the Amazing Spider-Man universe. If we combine these two facts from these two different trailers with the reports that Sony wants Andrew Garfield for future projects, it would make sense that Sony would take the opportunity, with Morbius being delayed, to add Andrew Garfield into the film somehow. That is, if he isn't already in it. I have a theory about this, and I think people are going to like it. In Spider-Man No Way Home, where Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield first meet Tom Holland's Peter Parker, on top of the school roof, they start talking about loss. Peter starts talking about losing Aunt May. And from here, Andrew starts talking about losing Gwen, and he tells us a little bit about how his life was after that. And here's the really important part. He says that he stopped pulling his punches. He got bitter. And for those of you who don't know what that means, let me explain. Spider-Man is super strong. If he punches a normal person, he'll probably knock that person out and maybe even kill them, but he'll definitely hurt them a lot. So basically what Andrew Garfield was saying was, I stopped holding back and I was going full strength at people. So he got kind of violent. Now let's link this to the picture that says murderer over it. What if Spider-Man got a little bit out of hand? Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. We already know from Spider-Man No Way Home that he got a little bit out of control. He got violent and bitter, stopped holding back his punches. Perhaps something happened here. Now, I don't think he killed anybody. I want to make that clear, because that's not who Peter Parker is. Even if he did lose Gwen, and even if he was in a really dark space, I don't think that's something they could say Peter Parker did. But could he have hurt some people? Yes. And could some unfortunate circumstances perhaps maybe framed him to be a murderer? Yes. That's kind of what happens to Spider-Man. He's the hero, but of course people like JJJ make him out to be a menace, a villain. So what if this picture of Spider-Man, which we know is not Tom Holland's Spider-Man because it's a different suit, turns out to actually be Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man? Maybe this was their plan the whole entire time, knowing that Andrew was going to be in Spider-Man No Way Home, and knowing that he could have a future in the Sony universe. After all, before they partnered with Marvel Studios, that was the plan. They were going to make The Amazing Spider-Man 3. Now, I think everything worked out the best way it could, and Andrew finally got his redemption in Spider-Man No Way Home, and it looks like the future's bright for him as Spider-Man. And maybe Sony planned this the entire time, for him to come back into their own universe and to be the main Spider-Man while Tom Holland is in the MCU. And maybe knowing that, they painted that picture of Spider-Man in the Morbius trailer, knowing a Spider-Man who was not Tom Holland was going to be coming into their universe very soon. And then, not to mention, Tom Hardy has talked a lot about the next film for Venom, Venom 3, being a Spider-Man vs. Venom film. Well, after Spider-Man No Way Home's post-credit scene, they made it very clear that there's going to be a different and new Venom in the MCU. And it's not going to be Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock. But we're still getting a third Venom film that takes place in the Sony universe, so who's going to be the Spider-Man? Well, it looks like Andrew Garfield's going to be. And I'm really starting to think that Sony might actually have a master plan behind everything that they've been doing for the past few years. Or maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part, but that's my theory. Let me know what you all think about this in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and of course subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news and theories and the Sony Spider-Man verse. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.